What's up, ordinary car guys, and welcome to the channel. We're back working on the 2006 VW Jetta. Has the 2.5 liter 5-cylinder engine, and today we're going to be working on the timing. So we originally timed it the old redneck way. We didn't have the actual tool, so we used 2 Torx bits and a wood block to put between them to try to line up the cams, and then we just turned the crank to where we thought was top dead center for cylinder 1, and it runs, but it doesn't run very good. So we do have the 2 tools now. So this right here is, there are 2 bolts in, or 2 holes in the cam that you bolt this into, and we'll show that once we get to it. And then this is the crankshaft locking pin, and we'll get to that as well. But we do have those 2 tools. It's about $100 for the both of them. But if you want to get it timed right, you know, it's kind of necessary. So we'll see how it goes. And it doesn't seem like it'll be too hard since we actually have the tools to use now. But first, I want to start by draining your radiator. Then you want to take off the cover here, that has the mass airflow sensor and the intake box, the air box. And then from here, we'll move to removing the valve cover, and then we'll probably just unhook the coil packs to get this harness out of the way. We'll have to remove the thermostat housing here, and those hoses go into the radiator, and then remove the timing cover. Then also, what you'll want to do, because you will need to get to the crankshaft, is remove the front passenger side wheel and the inner fender here. And so we do already have the bumper off because we've been working on it. If you're new, if you're just tuning into this video, this has been a project going on for us. So we do already have the bumper off because we had the entire head off of the car. We had a broken valve spring. So we'll need to get to the back side of the crank. Here is where the pin goes. But we'll get to that. So you need to get the wheel off and the inner fender. So far we have the radiator drained as much as we can right now. Some more will come out once we get these hoses off. But we're just working on getting some of these things out of the way. And we'll pick back up once we have that done, and when we have the timing cover and the valve cover out of the way. So when we actually get to the meat of it. So we have the coil packs removed, and then the harness moved over. And you will have to take off this tube right here that runs back into the fill for the radiator, so it just circulates the fluid. So you will have to take that off to get the timing cover off, and it just runs right back and bolts onto the thermostat housing down there. So that is one other thing you will have to take off. And then of course, just any other, like there's a wire and ground that connects right there, so you just have to move that off. Now I think once we get these hoses disconnected, and then there is this tube right here that runs into the thermostat housing that we'll have to take off as well because it bolts to it. Have to take that off as well in order to get it off. But I think that should be it. Hopefully we will just be able to, actually I don't know, we may actually have to pull this and pull the intake because we can't get to these bolts on the timing cover because of this right there. We'll try to get it loose from this hose and get it out of the way to get to these bolts. We'll try that first. But if that doesn't, hopefully we're able to do that and we don't have to take the front of this car off again in order to get to it. But we'll try to do it the easiest way possible because we don't really want to do that. But we'll see what happens. So it turns out we are going to have to at least try to move the intake, because this pipe, the bracket goes over top of, it bolts over top of the stud on the underside of the thermostat housing, and then there's another nut on it that holds the thermostat housing in. So what we're going to try to do is we're just going to move the fuel rail, just swing it over to the side, and just try to unbolt the intake and maybe just move it back enough to find that bolt and hopefully get it loose. If not, then I guess we're going to have to take off the radiator support, which hope not. It's a pain trying to get this thing back on. It's just a lot more work. I guess it's not that hard. It's just a lot more work to do. And especially if you're just trying to do that and you still have the entire car together, you don't really want to have to take off the bumper and both inner fenders and everything just to set the timing. But we're going to see what happens with this, and we'll let you know. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully we can just unbolt the intake and move it enough to pull it out. So to do that, we're going to use, it takes a T20, and there are bolts here. So you can go in through this hole or over the top. There's one down in here, and then there's 5 or 6 others across the top and around the side of it that you can't see because the fuel rail's in the way. But we're going to try and get that done and see what happens with that. So I have the intake loose, and I misspoke. The bolts for these are a hex. So you can see right here, it is a hex. So I think it's a number 9 hex. But these bolts do have keepers on them. Some of them work, some of them do not work. So just be mindful of that when you're pulling them off, that some of them may fall out. But now that we have these loose, we're going to check and see if we can get to that bolt that's holding that pipe in, and then we'll let you know what the status is. We just got the timing cover pulled off, so that tube we were having trouble getting off, just so you know, there's a bolt right here. Can't really see for it in the light, but it bolts in right there. And then also down inside the intake, it goes in right there, that open spot, and it just has a like a U-clip on it. So you just pull that out, and then that tube will come right out. So we're able to get that off. And then also on the intake, along with the bolts that are along the top, the sides right there, and then the 2 that go through these holes right here, there are 2 13mm nuts on the bottom. So where the dipstick tube runs, it runs through a bracket, and there are 2 bolts on each side of the bottom, basically here and here, that run from here, sit through the bracket, and then those 13s bolt up to it. So now that we have this off, going to get and try to spin or turn the engine over to where I can show you where the tool for the cam goes in here, and then we'll also take a look at where the crank pin goes. And then so we'll also take off this gear right here, and that is a 12 point, and let me find the size. It is a M14 12 point that goes in there. So we'll pull that off so we can move the chain around and get it set correctly. All right, so this right here is where your crank locking pin will go. You can see right here is the outside of the wheel, so you can just follow this up. It's basically right behind the mounting point of the control arm, and just go straight up. And this is an 18, so it fits right on it, and then you'll be able to get that loose that way. And so now we're going to loosen this up and pull it out, and then we'll go from there. So now that we got that bolt out, we just put our crank locking pin in here, screwed it in, and now we're just going to turn the crank until we find our hole where it stops. And then here, this is actually a tool to turn the cam on a Ford. Let's see, I'm going to go this way. Do I need to pull that out a little bit, or? No, it's just... All right, so now you'll turn it and it'll actually hit and catch and stop, so you won't be able to turn it anymore. So that way we know we should be in the right position. So now we can go up and look, and so we were actually way off on our cams. So now we can pull this off and reset our cams, and then be able to put that back on. Okay, so another update. There is a little hole in the crank that this pin goes into. So what we did first, we put it in and turned it until the crank stopped. And then from there, you can back it out a little bit and then just fiddle moving the crank back and forth until you can get this to thread in more. And then once you get that in, you can try to turn the crank back and forth. And at that point, if you have it in correctly, you should not be able to move the crank at all, because it is in that hole. So again, we put it in all the way, turned the crank until the crank stopped. We backed out the bolt and then turned the crank just slightly until we get the pin to thread in more. And at that point, we can't turn the crank either way, so we know we are incorrectly. Now we'll move on to the cams. All right, so now that we have the chain off, and we had to take this gear off, chain's loose so we can turn the cams. So there are two screw holes right here and right there in the cams, which align to these two bolts. And so also, along with that star bit, the 12 point, you can turn the cams on these lobes with a 19mm wrench. So what we'll try to do is we'll just line one up, get it bolted in, and then we'll turn the cam to get the other one lined up. And then once they're both together and screwed in, that means our cams are in alignment, are timed as we are timing the engine. So they're in time along with our crankshaft, and we should be good to go to put our chain back on. Now that we have the tool screwed in and tight, we should be good to go on our time, and we should be ready to put the chain and this gear back on. So, it's really simple. Once you get the holes lined up and get this bolted in, it kind of does the work for you. So we were pretty far off when we initially tried to do it. I think we had the cams in tune with each other, but we were very off on the crank, which was the issue. Degrees? Yeah, about 60 to 70 degrees off, because we just turned the crank until we, fingered the cam, or the the piston at the very top of the stroke, but I guess I don't know if that's not where it's supposed to be, or I don't know. Anyway, so we got the crank pin in and it's locked. Can't move the crank anywhere. We got the tool for the cam in, and now to put the chain back on. Alright, so to get this gear back on, what you'll need to do is take a screwdriver under the tensioner right here, get it under there, and from this bottom angle lift it all the way up until you can get something in this pinhole right here, and then you'll just remove the guide for the chain. You'll just pull the chain tight around this gear, and then this one slipped on pretty easily. So now we're going to get this tight and tighten down, and then we'll be able to put the guide back in and pull the pin from the tensioner, and we should be good. So after that, then we'd be able to pull the bar from the cams, pull the crank pin, and then start reassembling. Alright, so now we have the timing chain cover on with some fresh RTV and the bolts just hand tightened. So we are going to torque them down to 7.5 foot-pounds, and then we'll just give it about 24 hours. So we'll pick back up tomorrow once this is set to put everything else together, and then start it and see how good we did with the timing. So we expect it to be right with the tools. I wouldn't expect anything less, but we'll see what happens. So I did go ahead and decide to put the valve cover on, as I needed to set it on anyways to cover up the cams to keep any junk out of it. So right here, this is the torque pattern for it. And you'll torque these to 7.5 foot-pounds. So now that I got that done, again, we'll pick back up, putting everything else on tomorrow. And just like that, it is the next day. So I'm ready to get this thing back together and give it a start, see how it runs. So that's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to get started. We got everything back together, and it's just time to fire it up and see how we did. So let's give it a go. Yep, ready. Oh, yeah, that's much better. Oh yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, we were way off on our initial set. That is night and day. Sounds like it's running like it's supposed to. Good job. So there you go. That's how you set the timing. So glad we're able to get it right. Sounds like it's running great. What we're going to do next is we'll plug in our code reader, clear the codes, and just let it run for a little bit. Make sure that nothing else pops back up, and we will also need to put coolant in it because we haven't yet. So then we'll do that, take it for a drive, and see how it goes. So right now we just got the radiator filled up, just trying to get and let some of the air bubbles get out of the system and let it get up to temperature a little bit before we actually drive it. But you know, you can hear it's running really smooth. So
burn like a kitten. Burn like a kitten.
And I know it was hard to tell in the very beginning, and I don't know, was it part 2, I guess it was? no part one, I guess, when we backed it off the trailer, when we started it up, the engine was shaking so bad. But I mean, now it's just, oh my goodness. It's so nice. Really excited to finally get it back running like this. I mean, we've never heard it run like this before. I mean, you can look in there.
Vibration at all.
Just minimal vibration. So it's, oh my goodness. So happy we found that valve spring. We just happened to find it, and I mean, just listen to it. It's so great. So we're gonna let this run for a little bit, and then we'll take it out for a ride and we'll catch it in. All right, so we're just pulling out of the driveway.
Oh. Wow.
Oh man,
That is so smooth.
that's nice.
That is so nice.
If you didn't see last time we drove it, now I actually don't think we showed it, but this thing had absolutely no power.
No power at all.
Like, it could barely make it up a little hill. It was horrible. But now this is, wow.
Because we were off on our cam timing.
Well, our cam was off probably, and our crank was way off.
Yeah. Yeah. So the moral of the story is spend the money,
Get the right tool.
correct tools, save yourself a lot of time, and get it timed correctly.
Yeah, it's a, you know,
Oh man, it runs so good. It's smooth as silk.
you know, a lot of times it's like you don't really want to spend the money to get the tool, because I mean, we thought we could do it on our own.
Yeah.
I mean, we thought we knew what we were doing, just trying to redneck it.
And we didn't.
But I mean, it was bad.
It was really bad.
And it's it's amazing just what two simple tools will
Two
make.
simple tools.
I mean, yeah, they weren't cheap. There was like $100 for the both of them. But I mean, this is seriously night and day.
Oh yeah.
So
Tremendous.
this thing's pretty snappy.
Yeah, it is. See what it's got. Oh wow. 0 to 60 and nothing.
Yeah.
Nice.
Let's see what we can get off the line.
Yeah, let's see what it'll do.
All right, rolling up to a stop sign. Ooh,
0 to 60?
we got to 50 there.
50. 0 to 50 pretty quick. Feels good. It's smooth as silk.
Yeah, and it sounds good when it's running.
And it sounds good. It's so much quieter than it was before. We were actually driving it wondering if the VW sounded that loud.
Turns out we were wrong.
Turns out we were wrong. You're just not timed right. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
All right, guys, that's going to be it for this one. It is incredible, the feeling of actually driving the car and just how responsive it is. It drives amazing. It is fantastic.
Amazing.
And, you know, comparing it to what it was like the first time we got it together, when the timing was so bad, it was just, I mean, you press on the gas and really nothing would happen, and it would barely climb up the hill. I mean, we're basically running off probably only one cylinder maybe.
Yeah.
And of course the timing on that was horrible. But, you know, just, we said it before, can't really stress enough how important tools are.
Yes.
And I mean, we thought we could do it on our own and figure it out, but it was horrible. It was horrific.
It was.
It was embarrassing almost. I mean, it's amazing that it even started.
I know.
And I don't know how we didn't bend a valve.
I don't know.
I don't know. We got lucky that way.
Yeah.
But we got the right tools in, got it fixed, and you know, now we know how to time a 2.5 liter 5-cylinder VW or Audi engine.
And so do you.
Yeah. So I know I did a lot of research trying to find ways in, you know, information, videos, any kind of rent thing on how to time these engines, and I really couldn't find any like guide like I'm trying to put together here. So here you go. We got it right. It runs fantastic. Really excited for the rest of this. We have a few things left we have to button up, but I mean, the majority of the project's done.
It is.
I mean, because of course the main thing was just trying to get it running right. And now we have that. There are, you know, a few small minor things that we have to get fixed, a few switches. Got to get the hood back on. And then we're going to drain the radiator, flush it out, and fill it up with some brand new coolant, because we did have a little bit of oil in it just from when we were putting the head back on, splashing some oil in the ports on the block, and the coolant ports on the block. But other than that, you know, it runs fantastic. It's a really, really nice car. Really whippy and sporty. It was fun to drive. I really enjoyed it.
It was fun. Very responsive, very smooth. It's just amazing the difference.
Yeah.
When we got that timing right.
I mean,
it's a whole different car.
It is. And I mean, lucky it ran the first time, but we got it running now. And we had the OBD2 reader plugged into it the whole time. Coolant, everything in that is fine. It stayed at about 180 degrees the entire time. We had no new codes pop up, so we're good there. And I mean, just small things left. So that was fantastic. But stay tuned to the rest of this. Will be more parts to this. Getting the rest of this thing buttoned up and out the door. So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to the channel. Go back, if you haven't seen the rest of these, go back to the beginning. Watch this whole series. And it's been really fun and exciting, really exciting getting up to this point. A lot of fun and learning going on. But thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more parts. We'll see you.